Um, okay, we're live. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. I have one of my favorite guests to have on today. Someone who's been a pioneer as far as like uncovering hidden history and like the real nature of our reality, and that's Brad Olsen. And I feel honored because like I think I first interviewed Brad in 2022. Or maybe even before that, and it was with Daryl from the Greater Global Enlightenment Rate Network, and ever since then he's been coming on, and a little bit more. And today we're going to be getting into fascinating information on Antarctica. Brad is an award-winning author, publisher, and researcher and world traveler for his deep investigations into hidden history, lost civilizations, and esoteric knowledge. He's written over 10 books, including the Esoteric Series and the acclaimed Sacred Places series. Brad has appeared on major platforms like Ancient Aliens, Coast to Coast AM, Beyond Belief with George Norrie, America Unearthed, Leaf Project, and all kinds of, And in the book Secrets of Antarctica, Brad reveals his own expeditions, encounters, and deep research into one of the world's mysterious landmasses, lost contingents of Patagonia giants, ancient maps showing Antarctica centuries before official discovery, New Swabia and Nazi Antarctic base theories, Admiral Richard Byrd, Operation High Jump, Hollow Earth entrances, Antarctica ETs and breakaway civilizations, the Antarctic black goo and its potential link to transhumanism. And this episode is going to go deep into forbidden history, classified operations, and what's actually going on beneath the ice. And you can find more about Brad at his website at bradolsen.com, or also his publishing company, which is cccpublishing.com. And I even included some of his videos for his Esoteric series in the description as well. You guys can check that out. And Brad, thanks so much for coming back on, man. It's really good to see you again. How are you?
Hey, Rob. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on. I haven't talked to you and been on the Typical Skeptic since I was reporting live from Southern England at the Bases Conference, and you were doing interviews with some of the speakers there. So now back in America, and here we are.
How did you like the Bases Conference? Did you have a lot of fun?
Oh, it was a great conference. Yeah, for sure. Highly recommend it. And the producer of the event, Miles Johnston, he's really been one of the pioneers of black goo. I have a interview with him in the book about it, and he's allowed several other speakers like Harold Kotzvela and David Griffin to speak at the Bases Conference and alert people to what this stuff is and how the Falkland Wars in 1982 was all about Britain acquiring the black goo.
Wow. What for the people that don't know, what exactly is the black? I guess we could start there. Like, what is the black goo, and like in your opinion?
Sure. Well, just show everybody. There's a whole chapter on it here in Secrets of Antarctica.
Oh yeah, and congratulations on the book.
Yeah, it's doing really well right out of the gate, just released on January 1st. So the black goo is a sentient life form, and it is able to very rapidly clone anything that it's put in touch with. But it can also get into the body. And we had a couple super soldiers on the panel and at the conference, Penny Bradley and Drago Reed. And both of them have said that when they were in the programs, they were forced to ingest it. And it gave them superhuman abilities, a lot more stamina and strength and even cognitive abilities, but able to deal with pressurized environments or to be out on the battlefield for much longer too. So it's been weaponized. It's been used by the military, and that's what the Brits were going down to the Falklands. Well, beyond the Falklands, a lot of people don't realize that the Falkland Wars, it broke off into two sections, two battle groups. And one of them was going to South Georgia and then the South Sandwich Islands. The southernmost island in the South Sandwich Island is called Southern Thule Island. And this is where the actual surrender for the Falkland Wars took place. And it was just 8 Argentinian scientists that put up a white flag and surrendered. But it was so top secret, it's called Operation Keyhole, that the British were going down there to collect this black goo. And indeed, they went down another time to destroy the base and to put it all into a ship to take back to the UK, where scientists from Marconi Laboratories were working to study it, to backward engineer it. Then at first it killed a bunch of people in Marconi Laboratories. It's very dangerous if it gets into your body and you don't know what you're doing. But still, the British went forward and used it to enhance their super soldiers. So the story just gets weirder and weirder, because now you can make a pretty good argument it has gotten out into the general public, and it's creating a lot of these very bizarre new 21st century diseases like Morgellons. And it's in the graphene oxide, which was part of this agenda. So they want to get it into people's bodies, is the weird thing about it. And to a certain degree have been successful.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? On a side note, Morgellons is so strange to me. I have a friend who has Morgellons. He's a targeted individual, and it's my friend Touchdown Tommy Edwards, and he's pretty open about it. So I don't think he would mind me saying. But like, it looks like wire strands coming out of the skin. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, how do they do this to people? It's insane. Like it's a very bizarre disease. I've often thought that, like, that they are often, that and Lyme disease are definitely like bioweapons, and I think you kind of just proved it with the evidence of the black goo,
Yeah, and it's been, as I said, weaponized in many different ways. It's also in the ferrofluids, and it can be found in the injectables that were given out for free a few years ago under the auspices that it was going to cure some kind of cold or flu. No, it's all about getting people jacked up on this stuff. And now we're starting to see the results.
Yeah. So where should we start with Antarctica? Like, this is a fascinating topic. I know you talk about the Nazis being down there. It seems like there was proof of them, but then there's also like Unearthed, and ET breakaways. Like, where does it all tie in together, do you believe?
Yeah, there's definitely a tie-in, because for one, the Nazis were utterly fascinated with the concept of an inner Earth, or their ancient ancestors living within the Earth. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole idea of an inner sun and an inner Earth. I don't really know how to rectify that. But nonetheless, they were certainly into that whole concept. And, well, let's just keep in mind that inner Earth could be underground bases. We know there's over 130 in this country alone. The DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, you could classify that as inner Earth, I suppose, as well as the very deep cave systems like Mammoth Cave that goes down several levels. And they haven't even explored all the caverns in Mammoth Cave. And then you also have what could be below the ice, because there's a 2-mile deep polar plateau in Antarctica, and underneath are geothermal features, and you could have the propensity for large domes from all the geothermal features down there. And so what is under the ice could also qualify as inner Earth. And so this is what it looks like without the ice. It's actually kind of a hodgepodge of land masses. Most of what we see of Antarctica are the glacier and the ice shelves that extend out.
Yeah. One thing I remember someone saying, I can't remember if it was you or someone else, but I think the Nazis felt like they had found like they quoted something like, we found the perfect Shangri-La for the Fuhrer. And I think they were like referring to being under the ice there, because supposedly it's like tropical, like underneath Antarctica or something. Is that true?
Well, at least it had been tropical one time, because they found quite a few fossils, ferns and dinosaur bones that could have only lived in tropical environments. But yeah, I've got that quote from Admiral Dolans on the back here. It says, "The German submarine fleet is proud of having built for the Fuhrer in another part of the world, a Shangri-La part of the world, a Shangri-La land, an impregnable fortress." So that certainly smacks of being Antarctica. And then when you consider that Admiral Byrd in his diary is called A Secret Expedition to a Paradise Inside the Earth. This is the cover of Admiral Byrd's diary. The Missing Diary. Well, it's not missing anymore. It's published and you can buy it on Amazon. And I quote from it in the book, which was given to his son before he died. And then after he died, his nephew published the book. And it's been very controversial because as far as I can tell, we haven't been able to find the original to do tests on it, the handwriting and the paper. You know, you can date certain documents if you can analyze them. But it was published as is, and it talks about him flying his plane the second time to the South Pole, deep into this inner world, and finding this paradise on Earth. So it's quite a paradox. What exactly is under the ice?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I remember there was this guy. He came on Art Bell back in the day. He was a Native American elder. This is a total side note, but he said he thought that there was like whole like civilizations under there. Like, you know, like there would be like the way I'm imagining it would be like deep underground military bases, and then if you talk to Gene Decode thinks that there's like maglev train systems that go from like, you know, that could take you like from where I'm at, like Pittsburgh, to like somewhere in Europe in like two minutes or something like that, or, you know, a very fast time. And then I'm guessing underneath that would be like ET civilizations. But what this guy that was on Art Bell said back in the day, he said that he thinks there's whole like oceans down there and like lakes, and like he said everything that's up here is down there. Like, what do you think about that? Like, do you think that's a possibility?
Well, like I said, that's what I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But certainly there are many views of what it looks like in this.
Oh, that is cool.
Rendition of Agartha, the land of the advanced races. Yeah, oceans, continents, and an inner sun. And
holy shit!
Everything is reversed too. So when you're in there, let's say you enter into the North Pole. Your compass would say that you're in the South Pole, and this central sun, it actually rotates counterclockwise to the Earth. So the Russians found that the Germans, you can see here too, inner sun rotating counterclockwise, entrances at both of the poles. This was a document that was found by the Russians. Remember the Soviet Army, the Red Army, was the first to get into Berlin. And so they got the lion's share of documents and classified documents, especially from the Anunnurbe Society, where this comes from. So the Russians put together this Orion file. And we've been, my research assistant and I have been digging deep into this. It's a multi-file report based on the Anunnurbe documents captured at the end of World War II. Indeed, there is a mention of Agartha based on the Anunnurbe conclusion that there really is an inner Earth. And the Soviets were very anxious to find an entrance to it. Based on all the very detailed conclusions the Germans made, a research assistant to me, Frank Dean Kammer, could only conclude that, quote, their detailed scientific data have their origin from the Ariani. They refer to and cite facts that we today could only start to grasp with our computers or satellites. The Germans wrote about this in the 1940s, kind of like your Native American that was on Art Bell, knew about it decades ago. They described planetary revolutions, distances, mass, and elementary compositions, etc. They knew about it. The Soviets in 1982-83, with the first computers, were able to confirm these findings. And so then the Soviets are on the track of the inner Earth. But indeed, the Germans were well ahead of everybody, not only in technology and advancements, but these explorations. And they were going to Tibet in the 1930s. You remember that movie 7 Years in Tibet with Brad
I
Pitt?
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't talk about this stuff, but that was based on the life of Ernst Schaefer. And he comes back to Berlin in 1938 with a cache of documents and other Tibetan artifacts. And the Germans wasted no time. In the same year, 1938, they mount their expedition to Antarctica and the New Swabia expedition when they set up Base 211. And we think that he came back with some documents that gave Germans the idea that they could go under the ice and meet this inner realm called the domain of the Ariani. That's the way it was described also to Admiral Byrd when he flew his plane in there. So it does appear that there is a very high-tech, very ancient civilization, not only under the ice in Antarctica, but quite possibly under the Tibetan Plateau and perhaps elsewhere. Because this map says Ariani isn't just one location like the city of Shambhala, but is the land of advanced races, that it's a whole realm in there with several cities and many different places like the domain of the Ariani and the city of Shambhala, that Agartha is actually the whole inner earth realm.
This is fascinating. We had a question from the audience. I'll put it up. I don't know if this ties in, but I'll just put it up. He says, this is from Ashton Riley. He says, Brad, do you know if the Americans, British, or Soviets would reattempt Operation Tabarin or any other attempts to try and infiltrate New Schwabenland or Antarctic Germans after the 1946 attempt?
Yeah, that's really important because the British were spying on the Nazis all throughout World War II, and it was called Operation Tamarin. And I went to a couple of those bases when I was in Antarctica about 7 years ago, including Part Lockroy, and there's another building outside the Verdansk base, which was built by the British. And they were all spying on the German submarines and the ships because, remember, the British cracked the Enigma machine. So they were able to listen to what the Germans were up to. And they knew during World War II that they were bringing down personnel and material to Antarctica. And then they, of course, tipped off the Americans, who wasted no time after the end of World War II to mount Operation High Jump, to attack any Nazi base in New Schwabenland, and also to retrieve flying discs. Admiral Byrd led that expedition. It was unsuccessful, of course. And on the cover, we reproduce the Battle of High Jump, where these ships, these UFOs, the flugel rods, came out of the water and out of holes in the ice and attacked our armada. And it was a very one-sided battle. We couldn't shoot them down. They had some kind of force field around the discs. And they could have easily taken out the whole armada of ships, but they just took out one called the Maddox, which we reproduce here with something like a direct energy weapon or a death ray, according to Tesla. And that sent High Jump back 2 months into the 6-month expedition. So they were obviously dealing with some kind of high-tech weaponry. And in fact, Admiral Byrd, on his way back, said to journalists in Chile that we would be dealing with an enemy that could fly pole to pole at incredible speeds. So I think he was describing these honeyboo craft developed by the Nazis during World War II and then taken out before the war was over and brought down to Antarctica, to the New Berlin base, and then also to the micronations of South America and Chile, Brazil, and Argentina.
Yeah. Do you think that the like in your opinion, do you agree with like the super soldier or secret space narrative that the Germans like went out to space and like, you know, like started to colonize space and other areas of this universe, like with like we hear about Kruger and Nachtwaffen and all this, all the and the what's the other one? It's there's Kruger, Nachtwaffen. I mean, there's a bunch of but yeah. But what do you feel about that? Do you is that...
Yeah, well, certainly Nachtwaffen, the Dark Fleet. That is what the German secret space program is all about, and that is what Drago Reed and Penny Bradley said that they were a part of, and were ingesting this black goo as part of their training and part of being in outer space.
Wow, yeah, like it's fascinating to me, like it's fascinating to me that like our whole history could be a big cover up. You know what I mean? And this is why I think we all need to come together, because like, I think there's people in the mainstream ufology community that have a lot of the answers. And I feel like there's people in the SSP community, and I feel like there's people in the truther community. And I feel like everybody kind of has a piece of the pie, you know what I mean? But for whatever reason, a lot of people don't get along or whatever. But I mean, yeah, because we've absolutely been lied to about all this stuff, it seems like,
Absolutely. And that's one of my motivations for producing this book. Took me 7 years to come out with this, because when I was on the sailboat coming back from Antarctica, I started writing the script to my first conference presentation, but a lot of that information ported into the book, and then additional research went into it. But now I have a second conference presentation, which I gave for the very first time at the Bases conference in December. But I've just been signed on to Contact in the Desert, and we'll be giving it at the Ultimate UFO Conference in Germany this May. So in front of a German audience, I'm going to talk about the U-boats going under the ice and all these documents that show that the Germans knew that Agartha was there. I'll show you in their own writing. This was on the U-boat directional documents. You can see right here, they're going to Agartha. No uncertain terms about it.
Wow.
There. And then some of these U-boat maps show the exact directional distance going under the ice, popping up at lakes, continuing on further. And then finally, when you get to the lighthouse of Agartha, it even says it in these directional maps that you bring out packet 3, and that'll tell you how the captain and the crew are to deal with the people of Agartha, of these inner realms. And it's not just one location. Like I said, I think Agartha is a larger network down there of many different locations, including this domain of the Ariani that Bird describes, but it also is quite a few other locations which are on another U-boat map that shows this incredible network of other locations and German names that they named down there. Trying to flip to the page here to show you that, here it is. Look at this. This is the two hemispheres, the two sides under the ice of Antarctica. Here's the entrance. And if you were to peel away the ice, like I showed in that earlier map, this does kind of correspond to the landmass of Antarctica without the ice. And so the Germans are down there. They're exploring all over the place. And they find, New Berlin is named here, New Schwabenland, even a fulcrum for the U-boats if they needed to get repairs. And they call it Osgard and the city of the Assays. I'm not sure what that means, or if this is just another location like Shambhala under Tibet, but they named all these locations as part of this greater Agartha network. And in a way, I was given this talk recently, Rob, and it occurred to me that these maps are kind of like this hidden realm, sort of like the way the flat earthers say that there's this land beyond the ice wall. Well, this is the land beyond the ice shelves. if you go underneath the ice, you come into these areas that were charted by the Germans in the 1940s with their U-boats. So maybe flat Earth is a psyop to throw us off from this whole inner realm under the ice in Antarctica.
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. But it's weird that it also is weird that there's like a no fly zone there. You know that there's literally like you can't fly over a certain part of it, right? And that would make me was if someone flew over it, would they see the entrance, to inner Earth? I guess,
Well, according to these German U-boat maps, their entrance is below the ice, so you can't even see it from the surface. But then there's the giant hole in the ice near the South Pole that Admiral Byrd flew his plane down into, and one of Linda Moulton Howe's whistleblowers, a guy named Brian S., who I had she let me have his contact information, and I talked to him for about an hour last year about his experience flying over and an eyewitness to the giant hole in the ice. This is Brian S.'s map. And what he described, well, they were doing an emergency evacuation. They had to get somebody over to another base on the coast. And rather than go around the big no-fly zone, they went right through it. And he told me that the whole clean air sphere is just a cover story. There are no buildings. There's no monitoring station. There's nothing that says it's a clean air sphere. But what they did see, everybody on the crew, and they talked about it throughout the flight and on their way back, they said, let's get a closer look and go right over it because it's several miles opening. And everybody on the crew heard the radio crackle over. What are you doing? Get back on track. Do not fly over that no-fly zone. And when they landed back at the South Pole Station, they were met with some unknown officer type people, probably of the NSA, that read them the riot act. And then they got reprimanded and so forth and told, you did not see what you just saw. But what they saw, and this is what I was really trying to pine down with Brian S., is that there were snowmobile tracks and cat tracks. And so, those snow cats that they groom the ski mountains with?
Yeah.
That's what they used to transport material up to the South Pole Station. And he said that there were tracks that led out from the base into this no-fly and no-go zone across the polar plateau for about 35, 40 miles till it gets to the hole. And this is what blows me away. Then he said that there is a road that corkscrews down as far as they could see into this hole in the ice. There's actually a road entrance as well, and you can fly into it. And I asked Brian S. about that. And he says, oh, yeah, absolutely. It's huge. You could easily, they're flying a C-130, which are those giant cargo planes. It's like, oh, you could easily dipped in, circled around, and come back out. It's that big. And so then when you consider that the Germans found a U-boat route, and we charted using their actual schematics, their dimensions, where they were going, we found that they got within 100 miles of the South Pole, going under the ice with their U-boats in New Schwabenland. And this is where these directions point. So you got an ocean route, a land route, and an air route to go down to the domain of the Ariani. So that's what I think your Native American guest on Art Bell was also describing.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's yeah, that's so it seems like it's like a real, like it's like it's wow, like I mean this is wow. What about one thing I wanted to jump into was I know you talk in the book about Patagonia giants. Like, how does that tie into this? That sounds so interesting.
Well, it does tie into it. Of course, Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego at the southern tip of South America, that is the closest continental landmass to Antarctica. And of course, that's where most voyages, including my own on a sailboat 7 years ago, left from Ushuaia, the southernmost city in the world, in Tierra del Fuego. But there were quite a few reports of the very first sailors during the age of exploration that encountered these giants, including on Magellan's ship, the first navigator to sail around the world. Although he was killed in the Philippines, his ship, this one, we went to see the replica of it in San Julian Bay, where he wintered over. And while they were wintering there, waiting for the spring, which is better sailing weather, they were met with a giant that showed up on the shore. And the historian said he was so tall that their shoulders only reached his waist. So they're literally twice the size of the Europeans. And that's also depicted on these early maps of when they met the Patagonian giants.
Question about that, Brad. Do you think that those Patagonian giants could be like from the Nephilim, like going back to biblical or even Sumerian accounts, like when there was all those giants in the Middle East, like during the days of like King Og and stuff like that? Do you think they could have migrated to Patagonia or something like that?
Well, indeed, all throughout South America, especially up in Peru and Bolivia, you have quite a few of those elongated skull giants. There's a whole museum in Paracas, Peru, with dozens of them on display. We saw one in the Sacred Valley on display. So they're just out loud and proud with it in South America that these giants lived among the indigenous people of South America. And they also talk about even modern day contact with giants in the form of aliens, perhaps Anunnaki, or I think the Nephilim were the offspring, because oftentimes when those giant skulls are given a DNA test, in fact, every single time, they find that it's an unknown father's DNA combined with a female human mother's DNA. So only the matriarchal DNA can be traced, and that's to a human, but the father always to an unknown DNA source. So they're human-like, but they're not quite human. Now, are these Patagonian giants, could they be Nephilim, or could they be an entirely different species? I see that they don't have the elongated skulls, or at least they're not really clearly visible in these images that I have in the book. But what is interesting is that they have a tie-in to Inner Earth. So have you ever heard of the book called The Smoky God?
No, it sounds interesting.
It's a nonfiction book. It was written in the 19th century of a father and a son who were Norwegian sailors, and they leave from northern Norway up towards the North Pole and find the entrance to Inner Earth at the North Pole. And they sail through it, and then years later pop out in South America. So once again, like Inner Earth oceans that are navigable, continental land masses, but also they encountered a whole colony of giants. And I'll just read this to you. In The Smoky God, he designates the people the giant race. And he said there was not a single man abroad who would not have measured 12 feet in height. All wore beards, not particularly long, but seemingly short cropped. They had a mild and beautiful faces, exceedingly fair with ruddy complexion. He goes on to describe them a little more. And they were fully a head taller than any of his companions. The women averaged 10 to 11 feet in height. And they were beautiful, fair complexion, delicate tint, heightened by a healthful glow. And then he said they would wear very fine clothes. He said they had a display of gold. But here's what's really interesting. The story concludes around the surface of Antarctica when the father and son emerged from inner Earth. The father died in a storm trying to navigate his ship away from the lost continent. The son, though rescued, was thrown into the insane asylum for daring to tell the world where his father and he had been. And he says that the giants of Patagonia, were some of the giants that came out of inner Earth, and they made their way to the closest continental landmass, that is Patagonia and Terra del Fuego, where they multi-generations later were the giants that were encountered by the first mariners who were circling the world in the age of exploration. So according to the Smoky God, they encountered giants down there who were the same height and appearance as the ones that were encountered in Patagonia.
Well, and there were stories of Magellan, right? I think he was one of the first explorers, right? Magellan saw the giants as well. Isn't that a story or something like that?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Like, this is so interesting. I love how you tied so much of it into inner Earth, because I think there's definitely something to that. You know, it's like this is an interesting one. I just thought about this. Why do you to just kind of shift this subject? Remember when I had you on before, we talked about some of these elites, the Vatican, the royals, and techies going down to Antarctica, making trips down to Antarctica. I think we talked about one where Krill went down there, and the Orthodox, they went down for some time travel machine or something like that. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah, for sure. So Patriarch Krill, he's like the Pope of the Eastern Orthodox Church, an elderly old man, and supposedly he was going down there to bless an Orthodox chapel, size of about an outhouse. It's like, what is an old man going down there? And before he went, he met the Pope, Pope Francis, who was speaking in Havana, Cuba, and they had some time together. And they're kind of like arch enemies. So what are they doing, meeting up? And what are they talking about right before Krill goes all the way down to Antarctica? Well, what happened just before that is that about I think 15 years ago, do you remember there was the stampede in Mecca where they said hundreds of people died?
Yeah.
Like this mad stampede. It wasn't a stampede at all. It was an excavation at Mecca where they had opened the Ark of Gabriel, and it had a plasma discharge that killed all those people that were in the immediate area when they opened it. And so they needed a cover story, and they called it a stampede. So then the Saudis, they have a real problem on their hand, because they got to get rid of this thing, because all the pilgrims that come to Mecca and Saudi Arabia to walk around the Kaaba and pray to all the different shrines and areas in Mecca. It's the most sacred place to Muslim people. And they have this Ark of Gabriel that is still emitting this plasma. But I guess they were able to get it enclosed again, but they wanted to get rid of it. And they didn't know how. And the only country that says, well, we can handle it, were the Russians. And indeed, there were ships that came to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, just a month or so after that stampede, and they were bound to Antarctica. And so they had an old defunct base that they were going to bring it to and just seal it in there and leave it. And so it has some kind of spiritual component, because Patriarch Krill needed to go down there and do some kind of blessings to seal it up. And that was the story of the Ark of Gabriel, much like the Ark of the Covenant, which has these supernatural powers bestowed inside the actual Ark itself.
Wow. And then would you say that like we have evidence of a breakaway civilization today? Do you think do you think that the Nazis might have stayed in Antarctica, or do you think they moved on to space or South America, or maybe they found a home there. And to back that up, do you feel like they were getting like extraterrestrial help? Like, we know they might have made it in to talk to the Agarthans, right? But I mean, like, do you think that, I mean, this goes back to like Sigrid and Maria Orsic, the Brill girl, they supposedly channeled, you know, extraterrestrials and got the codes to make, or not codes, but, you know, the blueprints to make, you know, craft. And so there's that story, right? But then there's also like, you know, yeah. So wherever you want to go with that. But
definitely the Brill women were a big part of it, because just after World War I, Maria Orsic and the Brill Society were working with beings from Aldebaran, the Andromedians, and the Nordics from Inner Earth. So once again, tall Nordics, kind of like the Patagonian giants or these smoky god type beings. And another Nazi-sponsored occult group was the Schutzstaffel, better known as the SS, which was a think tank called the Ahnenurbe, or Ancestral Heritage. This secret society was tasked with investigating the Aryan and Nordic roots of the Germanic people. And that's what those expeditions to Tibet were all about, were to make contact with these inner earth Aryans to give the Germans an upper hand in the war, a qualitative advantage, because they knew they didn't have the quantity of armies as the Soviets and the Americans in World War II. So they needed better trained troops, better armaments, and everything better if they were going to try to win World War II. And so they were a big part of it. And so when they found, in the current state of New Schwabenland is now there are multi-generational Germans that live there. So when I was going down there 7 years ago, I'm poring over all the maps I could get from Antarctica. And I was really shocked to find, when I was looking at all the bases during the Cold War era, so that is, this particular map was from the early 1980s, when the Berlin Wall was still up and the Soviet bloc of countries.
I remember that.
Germany still had bases in New Schwabenland, and those bases are still there today. That's on the surface. But the multi-generational Germans, and they dropped the Nazi moniker, by the way. They prefer to be known as Antarctica Germans, because that's what they are. And they're multi-generation now. And so how do I know this? Well, not only did Admiral Byrd in his flight encounter these very tall but human Germans who escorted his plane to the domain of the Ariani. They got out of the plane and they had a Germanic or Nordic accent. But then when they flew him out, they said Auf Wiedersehen, which is goodbye in German. So they were certainly speaking German. But fast forward to this modern age, and here's what's really interesting, Rob. So a book came to Project Camelot with Carrie Cassidy, and it was called The New Berlin Base. And in the beginning of the book, this guy describes being born under these domes of ice. He was born in New Berlin, and he somehow made his way out. He got to the surface. He moved to Germany, where he published this book in German. And Carrie Cassidy has since made his book translated in English, where people can read it. Go to Project Camelot, look for the New Berlin book, and you can read it for yourself. It's mostly these really arcane and hard to decipher physics and mathematical equations. You just have to see it for yourself to make sense of it. But he does describe his life there and living among the Antarctic Germans his whole life. Not only that, but you mentioned Gene Decode, who does a lot of these reports about taking out the deep underground military bases. So about 2.5 years ago, Gene Decode said that there were these very anomalous earthquakes on the Palmer Peninsula, and these earthquakes 10 kilometers down, and they were right on the direct route from New Schwabenland to the Palmer Peninsula, then out to South America. And Gene Decode said they just took out the tube tunnels, the escape route from Antarctica via the underground network. And so Dr. Michael Sala and Linda Moulton Howe reported that in the McMurdo station, around the same time frame that they took out these underground bases, there was this contingent of Germans that just showed up at McMurdo in the middle of winter. So they got to the surface, they got a cat track, and they made their way to McMurdo, and they just showed up. They said, get us out of here. Get us on the first plane to New Zealand or anywhere else. And so everybody was there who was wintering over. This was very surprising because nobody just shows up in the middle of winter like that. And so these would have been these multi-generational Antarctica Germans. And then more recently, Stuart Swerdlow, who says he's the last surviving Montauk boy, he's been doing interviews and talking about a person he knows who's still alive down there. And they very much want to announce themselves, to integrate back into the surface world. And according to Stuart Swerdlow's friend, he says, but we don't know how people are going to react when we say that we're the Fourth Reich. So yeah, how would we react? Bomb them, no attack. Yeah. So there's a lot of information, a lot of data points that multi-generational Germans not only have lived there for the last 80 years, but remain to this day.
Yeah. We have a question from the audience. This is from Sherry. And I can tell you, she says, what are the best resources to learn about Gartha and Tataria? Well, I'll tell you what, Sherry, you can get Brad's book. I think everybody that's in the chat today should buy a copy of Brad's book, because this is the best information I've heard about Antarctica and Inner Earth in a while. I mean, it's really good. And I love the fact that you tied in Gene Decode and Stuart Swerdlow and everything else and how it all relates to from mainstream ufology to some of these more fringe whistleblowers, that it all means something to me. I think it all ties in together. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And in the book, of course, I do have a lot of information about Agartha, just a few tidbits about Tataria, because that's, of course, on the surface world. And I don't think there are quite a few underground. So remember how last year out of the Giza Plateau, we're getting all these reports of scanning the Giza Plateau, and they're finding a whole city down there. Well, they're doing that in Antarctica too, and finding incredible under the ice grids, like city grids, even what look like pyramids, and a whole lot of other stuff, which I reprint in the book, that could be maybe from Atlantis, because Atlantis wasn't just a singular location. It was a world civilization that was all over the place. So
it's interesting, Brad. When I had Michelle Gibson on, you familiar with Michelle? She does research on Tataria. She thinks that there might be Tataria remnants here in the United States, which makes me think maybe we were all Pangea at one point. Maybe it was Atlantis, Tataria. You know what I mean? It was all it went from Atlantis to Tataria to whatever we are at now. And maybe the continents split apart. Do you think that's possible?
Well, it's possible. And I mean, if we're to say, look, this one has a pyramid, these scans under the ice, which find these city-like grids.
Wow.
If we want to call that Tataria, or we want to associate that with Atlantis, or maybe domain of the Ariani, I don't know. But yeah, these scans are coming up with some really, really amazing findings.
I think they found something in Greenland too under the surface, which is weird. So they're using, I guess, that new technology to be able to find that, right? I guess the stuff underneath the surface, right, or something.
Yeah, and that's there was a guy doing a lecture series saying that they too have a pyramid under there and a giant mothership craft, and this is why Trump really wants Greenland, is, to secure these resources under Greenland, but also to give the Iron Dome missile defense system a closer proximity to Russia and, by extension, China. So we'll see. I mean, I often say in my talks and conferences that disclosure could very well come out of Antarctica or Greenland if they just show one of these motherships and send a film crew down there to document it. I mean, that could be it.
Do you have any opinions on Trump releasing the UFO files? I mean, I know I'm excited about it. Like, if he really does it, I think it's gonna blow everything wide open, because I hope if they do it, there's not a lot of redacted stuff. Like, in the Epstein files, there was a lot of redacted shit. Like, maybe they have to do that for certain reasons to, I don't know, I'm not even going to pretend like I do know, like, because it could be about the victims in that case with Epstein, or whatever. But, I hope if they release the UFO files that they release everything they have, and we find out about Roswell and all the other UFO crashes, like Michael Schratt talks about, that there's been literally hundreds of UFO crashes and the alien biologics, and I'm sure that would tie into the secret space program and alien abductions, and I think it could really blow everything wide open. Obvious. I mean, do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, well, Eric Trump, his son, his wife said that Trump has already written his disclosure speech that's supposed to be delivered to the nation in July, this summer. And then, of course, this really famous tweet just a week ago from Trump, I'll read it. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs, and unidentified objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless the USA, with out of this world news from President Trump. So, I mean, Rob, this is more than we have ever gotten out of any U.S. president. Do you remember when Jimmy Carter was campaigning in '76? He said when he was governor of Georgia that he saw a UFO and he was going to be the president that releases it. So he has his first meeting with presumably the CIA or the NSA when he says, I want to release this material. He comes out of that meeting visibly shaken, according to his staffers, and it looked as if he had cried. He was so shaken. Of course, Carter released nothing, never heard anything of it ever since. So when you have these reports that Trump is going to release it, that is just seismic in the consequences this is going to make, because this could truly be the year of disclosure, Rob, and that would inexorably change the course of civilization. Because then we would have the energy, we would have 0 Point, we would have our Star Trek future, which is up till now been denied us. But they have this technology already out there. So I think part of this disclosure would then be to reveal all that the military has gotten.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I hope it gets into some of the real fringe stuff, like the, like the alien abductions, the MyLab abductions, the targeting, secret space programs, like all this stuff, like there's really going on, seems to be behind the scenes,
Yeah. And just think all the SSP people that we know, I mean, they're just crying for disclosure. They just want to be recognized and acknowledged that they've gone through these programs and what they've done and what they've experienced. So I think for them, this would be a huge monumental achievement, because then it would certainly justify all that they've been through. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've almost went an hour. Is there anything else you wanted to cover from the book that like we might be interesting that like yeah, like, or did we kind of touch on everything?
Oh, just at the Nachtwaffen, the Dark Fleet has its base of operations in Antarctica, as well as some of the micronations, as I call them, in South America. And I got close to some of them. Hitler survived the war, so did Martin Bormann, and they got out with all the money, so they were able to finance all this stuff. And the Fourth Reich is basically an intelligence operation, but also their secret space program. And the reason the Antarctica Treaty was drafted in the late 1950s is to keep people out of certain areas. And I describe a lot of this in the book, that that it's still in effect. And just like the Antarctica Germans are still there, multi-generationally living under the ice in this paradise on Earth that Admiral Byrd describes. Because when you think about it, Antarctica being the most volcanically active continent in the world, 14 known active volcanoes and 93 known geothermal vents, you would create these big under ice cavities, which would be not exposed to the surface storms and cold temperatures, but could be quite warm and like t-shirt weather year round under the ice in Antarctica. So it really could be, and science is even showing that it is a totally different world down there, because some of these scans are also finding that there are entire river systems and lakes down there that are warmed through geothermal heating, with perhaps even life forms that haven't been discovered or recognized yet. So Antarctica is just such a land of mysteries and secrets that's why I wanted to publish this book, just to give people a heads up on everything going on down there. And so if people wanted to order the book and get it signed by me, you can order it through cccpublishing.com. And if you want to find out my upcoming conference schedule, go to bradolsen.com. Just my name is spelled. And also the Esoteric Series is another website I have about my Esoteric Series of books. So catch me online and get a signed copy through CCC Publishing, and we'll see you at the next interview or conference, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hopefully we can get together this summer. That'd be awesome. Like, oh, and I just want to say, is there any conference that you're like, or any? Well, I know you're an avid world traveler, and you've been to like almost everywhere all over the world. But like, are you traveling anywhere next that really is exciting to you, or any conference coming up that you're really excited about?
Well, yeah, the one in Germany, to give this presentation mostly about the German U-boats going under the ice in Antarctica to a German audience. It's going to be, there's a translator there that's going to translate everything I say in German. So I'm very interested to see the looks on people's faces and the questions that I get. So if you want to have me back on when I come back from that around Memorial Day, I'll give you a recap on that. And then I'm off again, to Contact in the Desert, end of May, early June, and then heading to Bosnia, speaking at the Bosnian Pyramid Conference with Dr. Sam over summer solstice. So unfortunately, I can't go back to the Bases Conference because they're doing it right then at the same time.
Wow, man, that's awesome! And good luck. I think you'll do well in front of the German audience. I think they'll be really intrigued about, like, because I mean, this is like some of the most groundbreaking research I've heard on Antarctica. Like, it really is like I mean, this is amazing, Brad. Like, for real. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I think I'll be well received, and I'm half German myself, half German, half Norwegian. So it's not like I'm knocking them or making fun of them or calling them Nazis or anything. I'm actually in awe of this technology that was developed pre-World War II, through the World War II, and then the bases in Antarctica, and how deep those U-boats penetrated under the ice in Antarctica. It's just, to me, I think this would be one of the greatest adventure movies ever created. based on a true story. So we'll see how well it's received, but I think it will be well received.
We just had one more question from Sherry. She says, will you ever go to the Serpent Mounds summer solstice celebration and speak, or did you ever do that?
I've heard about it. Yeah. And I know Mr. Hill, and he's invited me. I always get booked at other conferences during the summer solstice, and this year I'll be in Bosnia. So unfortunately, a lot of those I can't make.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wanted to tell you, my friend Rock Castaldo, he said he met you at a conference a few months ago. You guys spoke together. He told me to tell you hello.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be heading down to LA in a couple weeks for the Alien event. That's my next conference coming up at the LAX airport in the third weekend of March. So I'll be giving my Antarctica talk there and also moderating a transhumanism panel, and I'll be there with books signing for people as well. So if anybody's in the LA area and they want to make it down to the Alien event and Biomed Expo, that'll be my next conference.
And I'm hoping Brian has the Full Disclosure Now conference this year, because if he does, I'll probably end up going to that, and hopefully I'll see you there, Brad, like last year.
Yeah, like last year. That sounds good, Rob.
Yeah.
I'm going to see him tomorrow, so certainly we'll ask what the status is on that event.
Oh, tell him I said hello. Yeah.
Will do.
All right. Well, thanks, Brad. And everybody go buy a copy of Brad's book, because this is amazing information. This is like really groundbreaking information. So, yeah. And thank you, everybody. And thank you, Brad. And they get the book. They just go to cccpublishing.com and they can get a signed copy, right?
That's true. I can't send overseas anymore because the tariffs and costs of shipping made it quadruple the price of the book just to ship. So just in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are the last countries that I can send it to, but anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'll be live later today. I'll be live at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and 9 p.m. I know it's a lot, but I overscheduled myself today. So, yeah. But I'll see you guys later on. And thanks, Brad. And have a good day, everyone. Take care. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome.